Do you get involved with just the artistry, or are you looking at the stories as well?
Stories too. It kind of depends. Like at Marvel, everything's very much they have a system down. You know, like a production line kind of
Hmm.
thing. That's where it came from. Back when Stan Lee was doing Marvel comics, where there was the writer, and then there was a penciler, so we do
Hmm.
everything in pencil, and then they would hand those pages off to an inker,
Hmm.
so that everything could hit the print deadline. Like the print is still king in comics, so in order to like fracture everything to make sure you're not overwhelmed, that you can meet your deadlines.
Hmm.
Everything's compartmentalized. A little different now with digital. You can work a little faster. So there are some writers who draw. There's some people who do everything.
Hmm.
But with Marvel, they're still very much print is king. So everything's compartmentalized. So in that, I'm purely an artist, but I've also worked on creator-owned stuff. And this past year, I've written some things. We have a book at Comixology called Astonishing Times,
Hmm.
and so we done the second volume of that this year, and so I was able to like work with the writers on the book and like work my way in there and do a little bit of writing, and so I wrote a full issue, the final issue of that series.
Hmm.
So I wrote and penciled that, and we got an inker in again to meet deadlines, so I was able to
Nice.
do two parts of the job and then hand a third part off.
So I'm wondering right now, what is it like to work for one of the biggest comic book companies in the world? What is it like to actually work for Marvel? Because I'm assuming as a comic book artist and creator, you must like Marvel.
Yeah.
It must be something in your childhood that you picked up a Marvel comic book and someday hoped to aspire to
Hmm.
draw your own versions of these
Yeah.
superheroes, which you're now doing. So what does that feel like to you?
It's a very it's strange. Yeah, like as a kid, um, I still remember like discovering like Spider-Man and the X-Men and sitting at home and just like my mum would buy me some of the comics and I would copy them from them. I would make my own comics, and like for the longest time that's what I'd wanted to do. Never really knew how to get into it, and then obviously that was being a kid in the 90s, and then by the time I was coming of age, the internet and stuff, like the doors were wide open. But there's a lot of grind to it. Like, so I started in 2012, but I was doing like independent comics in Ireland,
Hmm.
and then through there, you're posting your work online, and you're hoping it's being seen, and you're kind of like, like the idea of the circles of influence,
Yes, yeah.
Stephen Covey kind
Hmm.
of thing, where there might be somebody of some influence, like another artist, who sees it and is like, that guy has potential, and they'll like signal boost you,
Hmm.
and then you've kind of like slightly broadened your circle of influence to
Yes,
the
so
point.
you start with your initial circle, your
Yeah,
initial friends,
yeah.
family, and then you're going out to the next ones and the
Yeah,
next
way
ones.
out on the fringes, and the
Hmm.
more you expand that out and catch the eye, the more you sort of
Hmm.
move in. But it does for